It is so easy to get lost in the shuffle, honestly. You're a parent and you're busy and you're taking care of your own health and you're making all these changes to your own health and paying attention and you're trying to do the best that you can with your kiddos, but it's hard because you're trying to juggle your life and you're trying to make sure that you're putting the right school lunches together for them. But then it's like, okay, I'm already worrying about myself. Is it different from my kiddo? Do I need to think differently? And I never even thought about this stuff until I had a kid. My kid's only 2 right now, but I'm dreading the day that he has to go to school and that he's gonna be exposed to all these other foods that I might not be really approving of. Now, I can't control everything, I certainly can't, but what I can control is what I would put in a school lunch and what I would substitute things for. So what I've done in this video is I've broken down what are common things that are put in kiddos' lunches, right? And I've replaced them with just better alternatives that, quite frankly, your kids probably won't even notice are different. They're just simple ways to be able to help your kids eat healthier when they're at school and make just that much of a dent in their overall health in the long term. Hey, we've got videos coming out all the time, like every single day at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button if you never want to miss a beat, and then hit that bell icon if you want to be able to hop on live broadcasts and all that stuff with me. So I don't claim to be a children's health expert, okay? But from one dad to another dad or mom or whatever, just take this advice with a grain of salt because hopefully it'll help you out. Okay, the first thing that I want to look at is replacing apples with strawberries. Okay, it's so easy to put apples in kiddos' lunchbox, right? But strawberries are actually a better option, and they really are, because here's why. It's kind of deceiving. When we look at the glycemic index of an apple, it's a 38, which means that it's already fairly low, to be completely honest. And then when we look at strawberries, it's a 40. Now, the glycemic index measures how high glycemic something is, how much it spikes your insulin. So we look at strawberries, we're like, well, actually, strawberries have more of a glycemic index. I guess I'll stick with the apple. But no, we actually need to look at what's called the glycemic load. You see, the glycemic load is really important because strawberries are less carbohydrate dense and they have more water in them. So it ends up making the load different. So basically, strawberries are a glycemic load of 3.6 and apples are a glycemic load of 5.7. What that means is the overall load, the amount of carbohydrates that they load your body with over the long term or over even the short term of the day, it's much better to go with strawberries. Plus, they have a unique ability to combat what's called advanced glycation end products. So advanced glycation end products it's basically like the result of mixing fats and sugar, which is in a lot of processed foods. Strawberries have a unique ability to actually kind of combat that. So we actually can erase some of the negative damage that's occurred from kiddos eating processed food when they go over to their friend's house or maybe even at your own house and you're just not aware of it. So that's number one, right? The next one is subbing out yogurts for something like cottage cheese. Here's the thing, good dairy fat is actually really good for you. Fat coming from dairy, contrary to popular belief, is very good. In fact, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published a study. It took a look at the different kinds of dairy fat. So in this particular case, we had pentadecanoic, we had heptadecanoic, and we had trans-palmitoleic. Okay, these are the 3 main dairy fats. Now this particular study was interesting. They found that those that had higher amounts of dairy fat in their diet had a significantly less incidence of heart disease or stroke, 42% less. Okay, so it's not the dairy fat that's the issue. Where the issues come into play is with the sugars that are in the dairy. Now, I'm not talking about added sugars, those are bad too, but the sugars that are naturally occurring in dairy, but also the casein proteins that are in dairy that trigger inflammation within specific ways, right? So it's like, as adults, it triggers inflammation in a lot of different ways, but as kiddos, like, we don't want to be triggering inflammation at a young age. We don't want to start that young, and the dairy is a problem. So when we're adding a bunch of yogurts or we're adding a bunch of these low quality cheeses, that's where we run into a problem. So go with a good quality, like single serving cottage cheese that is really high quality. Go for like an organic one, okay? And that way you're getting the good amounts of dairy fat, but you're not getting the added sugars that are in like the yogurts and like the Dannon yogurts and stuff like that. It's nice and easy and it's not sweet, but you can add the strawberries that you've already given them and mix that into the cottage cheese. That's a perfect way for them to get their protein, but not have this big insulin spike with the sugar, right? But they still get the berries. Okay, the next thing that I want you to do is replace the bread with like a cauliflower crust. Okay, you can make a grilled cheese sandwich with that. You can use it as a tortilla. You can make a quesadilla. Okay, you could make a sandwich, and usually like what I'll do, like I do it with the kiddo all the time, I use the cauliflower foods crusts because those are super easy to kind of manipulate. They're kind of malleable. So what I do is I'll take like a cauliflower crust, I'll cut it in half, and then I'll put some like almond cheese or some good organic cheese on there, and then I'll melt it and make like a quesadilla. Or maybe I'll take a little bit of avocado and a little bit of cheese and a little bit of like sliced chicken that I put up, make a sandwich out of it. Okay, it's really, really important that we're not giving our kiddos a bunch of bread. This stuff tastes just as good. There's multiple reasons, okay? Number one is going to be, obviously, bread is extremely high glycemic, okay? Very high glycemic. So what that does is bread ends up making us insulin resistant if we eat it all the time. So we're starting our kiddos young by giving them so much in the way of this bread when that's gonna just cause them problems later on. Why not stop it right then and there and at least reduce the impact, okay? Because it's a habituation thing. Our cells are constantly seeing sugar, right? They're constantly seeing carbohydrates. Eventually, we become diabetic or insulin resistant because the cells have seen it so much, they just are like, whatever, I'm not even gonna become receptive to you anymore. So if we can control it at a young age where we just give them something that's a healthier alternative that still tastes good, heck yes, this is exactly why we're in good shape. The other thing is gluten is a huge problem. Okay, so if you can just reduce the amount of gluten, okay, it doesn't have to do with celiac, it has to do with the autoimmune response that occurs either way, okay, or the immune response, I should say. So this is very important because this happens on a case-by-case basis. So the less you have gluten coming in, the less this happens. Gluten triggers the release of a protein called zonulin within the body. That triggers a leaky gut. What happens then is metabolic pieces kind of flow into the bloodstream, and that triggers an inflammation response. It just so happens that the same thing that attacks the gluten in our blood also attacks the thyroid. So the last thing you want to do is have a kiddo that's got a fresh, clean slate of health to start having thyroid issues because he's consuming too much gluten. Okay, so just reduce it a little bit. I'm not saying don't let your kid be a kid. Let your kid be a kid. But come on, you can make healthy choices that taste good. So like if you use the cauliflower crust things, make a Lunchables out of it. Okay, so take those little crusts and cut them up, do whatever you got to do, give them a little Tupperware or whatever with a little bit of marinara sauce, a little bit of cheese, let them make their own pizza just like they would with like a Lunchables and have some fun with it. So just so that you guys are aware, if you're interested, I went ahead and put a link down to cauliflower foods down below, just because honestly, I organically talked about them in this video, so you might as well check them out. So it's just a link to their regular website, nothing crazy, just want to be able to shout them out and help you guys out too. Okay, then we need to make sure that we are switching out a juice box for something different. You know what percentage of sugar in a kid's daily diet is coming from juices and liquids? It's over 50%. That's nuts. So if we just reduce that, we're in really good shape too. So what I do is give them a Zevia or something like that, or give them some kind of stevia sweetened beverage if they want something sweet. So Zevia makes like diet sodas that are sweetened with stevia. They still get all the goodness of it, but they don't have that, right? You can give them something like that, but also you could give them an ACV drink. Okay? Even my toddler loves apple cider vinegar and a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of stevia, making like a lemonade. Okay, just make something like that, or they get them at the store. It's super easy. That's a huge, huge win right there. Then lastly, make a trail mix. You have no sense in sending your kid to school with M&Ms or anything like that, or a trail mix that has a bunch of M&Ms in it, right? Make your own. So here's what I would recommend you do. Okay, you're gonna want equal parts macadamia nuts, pecans, and walnuts, okay? Get the little halves and pieces so that they're small and they're broken up, okay? It's a little bit more like a trail mix. Equal parts, mix that all up into one. Then go ahead and add maybe just a little bit of pepitas in there, a little bit of pumpkin seeds or a little bit of sunflower seeds, your choice. Something that's gonna get them that nice, diverse omega-3 profile. Okay, then you're gonna wanna use some kind of sugar-free chocolate chip. But I don't necessarily recommend giving kiddos a bunch of erythritol because it might bloat them. So what I'll usually do is I'll usually take baking chocolate, like 100% dark baking chocolate, and then I'll melt it down and I'll add stevia to it. And I can do this in bulk, and that's what I do. So then I melt down a couple bars of it, add some stevia, mix it up, put it in the freezer, and then I've got sugar-free chocolate, and then just chop it up and mix it into the whole bin that you're making your trail mix with. And then if you wanted to, you could add a few of those freeze-dried strawberries or freeze-dried blueberries, not enough to have a big insulin spike, nothing like that, just enough to give it an extra little bit of sweetness, dash a little bit of salt, a little bit of stevia. I mean, that's all you need, and you've got a tasty trail mix. So you send your kid to school with these options, and I think scientifically you've got some stuff that's really gonna pave the way for a healthier life with them. Anyhow, take what you want out of this. I'm not a pediatrician. I'm not claiming to be one. I just want to help you make a good decision with your kiddos. See you soon.